because at the same Fanana leadership, they are all important in improving our strength.
No, thank you very much. Welcome, comrades. Namhlanje sobheka in a little bit of detail ukuthi how do we then, in terms of campaigning, you will notice that I've been staying quite a lot in this issue of campaigning because ultimately, as a political party, we're gonna go to elections. Ultimately, as a political party, we have to put ama ideas wethu as a amile, and you only do that in a campaign. In the absence of our ability to campaign effectively, sizosebenza sisebenze sishiyeke phakathi. So that's why you see so much time from our side that we keep on changing from theory to practice in terms of a campaign. Over to you, comrade. I see your hand is up.
Yes, siyabonga national chair. Mine was just to make a suggestion, which is sicela usinikete this week to come out with a way on how, as NNLC, we are going to deal with the issue of the recordings. Then I think in next week, Wednesday, we'll have a concrete way on how on our own we are going to be able to keep those recordings.
Thank you. We will then handle that way. So we will let's rather deal with it outside so that we do not create other loopholes. So for today, we are looking at campaigning. You remember what sasebenzisa i-campaign esasinayo to understand i-role leadership. Noguti, how did leadership behave? I indicated that normally, in this sense, executive leadership, we are talking about the collective as expressed by the president and the national chairperson and the secretary general. Those are normally the people who become the expression of the executive leadership. We also said that executive leadership is not only national, sometimes it's at branch level, sometimes it's a component structure or a structure that is dedicated like the Youth League or the Women's League. So those also constitute an executive and they express themselves through their chairpersons and their secretaries. So we highlighted their major role, those the executive as a collective is to make sure that the constituents are clear, capabilities are there, united fronts are built. That's what they do. Then there is other responsibilities. One of the critical responsibilities in a campaign, ukwakha a message eyakbantu, is crafting the message. What the president or the national chairperson say on the platform and what is put on Facebook and what is said in the gallery should be prepared by somewhere. It should not just happen on its own. I'm sure that the NNLC has a department in terms of publicity or information or marketing. So that department must make sure that the style of sending a message is very clear. And that's what I want us to look at a little bit closely today. How do we get to the message that people can hear? As Pan-Africanists, it's guilty kakhulu. Ngoba most of the time sikhuluma lezi zinto ezashiwo ngo-Dr. Ambrose Zwane ngendlela ababeyisho ngayo in the 60s and the 70s. And uthola ukuthi it ends up not being what our constituency can absorb. Ngisebenzisa example ye-NNLC ke thina is the PC, that's our biggest stumbling block. Ngoba once we say Sobukwe said and we become very happy ourselves, but we forget that we are not talking to ourselves, we are talking to constituencies. So campaign sponsorship has two elements that we must think about. Is that one of how the message is created from Umkomboti, cleaned up until it's a beer, until it's a brandy. That squeezing of the message so that in 30 seconds you can say something that is worth words of 2 hours, because that message has been squeezed properly. But before then, there is another exercise that makes the message real. It's the work of policy development. Because when the Secretary of Health is not doing its work, the marketing team can do very little from crafting a message on a campaign that has to do health in the absence of the health policy. So before the campaign, the job of the campaign is to sell our policies, is to market our policies, is to promote our policies. And all the work we do is to ensure that we advance and we get more people to adopt our policy as much as possible. Because by the time leadership gets into the united front, people must already be attracted to the message and attracted to the policy, so that there's a very little clash in terms of how we work with other institutions. So that campaign sponsorship is a line that we're looking at today, starting with the stating the problem. It has been framed, you'll see that problem domain, it's highly interactive across roles, because as the problem is being defined, the campaign sponsors are thinking, is this thing sellable? Can it be coined? How do we put up a theme? How do we put up a line that everyone is going to repeat consistently? So the problem also has to be framed in a way that is communicatable. In the same way that executive leadership had to look at what constituencies that have to be defined, the campaign sponsors have to then go deeper and understand those constituencies and understand what they want and understand their language, how they say what they want. Because our job, as we said, as a party, is to modify social behavior and to modify society, and to move the society from one maturity to the higher maturity. So you cannot move people from your own perspective. You can only move from their own perspective. So ukwazisisa ulimi abantu abalukhulumayo, not language, limited to language, but the nuisance, the underlying themes of their like and dislike becomes very important. That's why after framing the problem in terms of how do we deal with it, we then look at what the constituency want. How do they want it really? Then we analyze that and then craft the content. E-content, the tricky part about e-content is that njengomntana ekhula, you just, no matter how much imnandi kanjani inyama, but you don't give meat to an infant. Umuntu on a 2 days, awumnikezi inyama ukuthi they must swallow inyama. You give them milk, and not any milk. You give them their mother's milk. Ngoba lolo ubiso light. So, messaging must be planned. When do we say what? Even if the party liked the Republic, there was a time where it was difficult to talk Republic because society was not ready to hear that. But the party had to talk about the absolute is not good. It's got disadvantage, but we still like Ubukhosi as a system. There was a time where the message could have said, we like the system, but we don't like the individual sitting in the system. Before you can say that, no, the right thing is a republic. I'm just making an example, understanding that that's not the policy position of the NNLC. However, the point here is that you must, as a political party, there's a difference on what you say to yourselves and what you say in the context of a particular campaign that is directed to abantu in general. So content planning, content management, you must plan the content. By the time the content is delivered at the last stage, it must be released at the right time to the right target every time. So that becomes the issue of delivery. Any questions so far before we go to the tools that will take you to deliver the message to the right people, and why do you choose which tool? Any comment?
Yes, leadership. Ngizama kubamba le issue of marketing and publicity. Ngicela kubuta ukuthi what is the main use ye propaganda lapho kulaba marketing, now market and publicity, because even the enemy na yoba ne propaganda yayo ku publicity, and what is the role ye propaganda the form of publicity and marketing?
Let's first define what is propaganda, because isikhathi esiningi le gama elithi propaganda has been used as ukuqamba amanga, telling untruth. Propaganda basically means marketing. It means that every organization go and get the facts, decide which facts is going to put on the table, decide which facts is not going to talk about. So that's exactly what we're saying here, Uguti. We must prepare our propaganda in time. And propaganda in politics is not lies, but it's proper managing the content, which means that you select what should be on your lips, and when you select when to release it. And when you release it, you make sure that you release it in a particular way. Because propaganda is about promoting something or depromoting something. Any other question? Or did I answer the question?
Yes, Abansat leadership. Thanks.
Let's speak freely. I won't be able to see hands because I'm sharing. Please just shoot if you feel Uguti kono funugusho. Then I see Guma to a little bit of detail in terms of then you have crafted this message. Now it's time to deliver. How do you choose the tools that are correct in delivering the message? I think the first thing that is important is to know the content ukuthi soyikhipha ngayiphi channel. So the first channel that you see there becomes the issue of networking. Networking it's basically influencing one-on-one. So we are talking about either a meeting, face-to-face meeting, or email or a telephone call, but it's biased towards one-on-one. Even if it's a group setting, but there's a one-on-one happening there. So what does that do? Which message should be carried in this networking style, and what does it do? This is where you are able to recruit individuals, because when you promote, you are making people aware. When you broadcast, you are making people aware. You'll see later. You are making people aware. But somewhere you must close the deal. If basic business, this is sales, as different to marketing. So you do marketing, then you do sales to close the deals now, to get the people to sign and pay on the register, on what you are selling. Here we're selling a campaign, we're selling a solution to a particular problem, or development of a solution to a particular problem that we are working on. So out of the networking, you are persuading either people to endorse you, or people to support you, or people to be your members, or people to take the cause. So you do that through networking. Leadership that is known is very important in this regard, because you then use them for people to be excited that the president or the national chairperson talked to me directly. It's very powerful. Second channel is the channel of petitions. Do you think that really government cares if you written a paper to them or not? That's the handing over of a memorandum has very little impact, if any. What is impactful is what happens before. So collecting signatures for petition, people feel committed to the campaign because you have asked them to agree if they are agreeing with you. And you start then in connecting them to institutions that block their will. Because you are reminding them what is in their interest and what they want, and put it in writing, make them put it in writing, and you are using more than one sense. They are not only hearing, they are also taking action. Although that action that they are taking is very simple and light, because you are just asking for a signature, or you are asking them to click a button. Then you can come back to them and say, we have taken, or we have to go and submit that petition that you signed. Or we have taken the petition, we can now come back and report to you that we've taken the petition. So that is a more of a teaching instrument. So you are informing people, you are waking up their emotions. You remember that some time ago, I said, logic don't move people. People are always moved by emotions. As a revolutionary, you must make sure that you are not moved by emotions. You are moved by logic. You prepare through logic. But when you deal with consequences, you move them through their emotions. You evoke their emotions for them to respond. So in order for people to respond, you want them to use a number of sense. Hence, in both of the things that you are saying, you want people to have a visual, you want people to hear, you want people to touch. So you already used more than one sense in order to get their attention and make them and to persuade them. Then the other channel is door to door. Move from door to door, having short discussion which just say greet people, ask them their needs, then indicate what is your view and what you are asking them to do. When you do campaign, you want to persuade, you want to also make sure that you get people to commit. But you are getting to another level as well. Because when they are 70 homes and you arrive being 20 in different of these homes, so even your competitors start having a look, these people are many and they're serious. So there is a level of I don't want to say intimidating like it's written here because it sounds very physical, but it's to create a perception of strength from the enemy, from the competitor point of view, or from the enemy point of view. Any questions so far on these tools of persuasion? No comments so far. Then you have the issue of events. I remember one day the question was that how do we make our events great? And at that time, I could hear that we are regarding the event being a workshop, being a rally or a community meeting or a march or a picket as a campaign on itself. No, that's an activity within a campaign. And that activity does not really persuade your friendly people to come to you. It intimidates the other side. It reinforces your message. It gets your message to move a little further so that by the time you come back to do door-to-door or you come back to network, they already know where you stand. So you are clarifying your message and agitating for action for those who are already persuaded. So these events feel good, but they are not the ultimate. If there are no follow-ups with the other one, it fizzles out in a couple of days. But if there is proper follow-up with the other three, then you have basically broadcast, you come back and reaffirm and nail in the scenario and get people committed. Those who are persuaded by coming and see others, it reinforces the message in them. It clarifies their heads on what needs to be done. And you have things like TV, mass media. Let me jump the other two. Mass media is the most important one that people normally see, being newspapers, being broadcasting. To a certain extent, the above on the present, there is no difference between mass media now and social media. They have kind of emerged. You'll see every big social mass media institution has a social media part because this has taken away. Even in this exercise, you'll see that they do exactly the same thing. Once you are in the media sufficiently, you then get an opportunity to lambast your enemies, to massage your friends, to prepare and mobilize other organizations to work with you. Because no one wants to promote you, but if you are seen to be successful, people want to use you to promote themselves or to be part of your success. So mass media becomes critical. However, mass media is a very expensive exercise. Normally, we don't own it, so it's dependent on you being nice to sufficient number of journalists. Others even go as far as getting those journalists to buy them and things like that. And but this media is critical. It's a make or break. As long as we are not on radio, that on TV that people have access on, we remain disadvantaged because people believe what they see on TV. Then there is another channel that is highly undermined, which is below the line. Basically, these are pamphlets and such things, and SMSs and WhatsApps. Those things have a way of sparking they are used to make people aware of your existence, aware of your interests, so that in the future when you come, they are ready to agree with you, or they are already to disagree with you. And in politics, people who are the only enemy that you have from a messaging point of view is people not to have an opinion about you. It really does not matter in politics if you got good or bad media publicity. You just need a lot of publicity. And some publicity that is negative, you use it to then spark the discussion on your direction. Lastly, then United Front, that's where you agitate other people and mobilize other people's resources to work for you. Let me stop there in terms of what I have and open up for question or for comments. In the absence of questions, then I would request just Comrade Mafafa to have comments as part of the closure. We're almost on the hour.
Sorry, Comrade, maybe before closure by Comrade Mafafa, I'd like to make a few comments. Firstly, on the mass media one. We are facing challenges when it comes to that in the kingdom, because all media is state-owned. There are still licensing pending, and which will never be approved because they've been pending for years for people who've been wanting to open private radio stations, even community radio stations as well. They are not getting their license approved, and they will never get, because it's only supposed to be one media that is going to broadcast only what is favorable to the system. We are lucky that we have platforms like social media lately, which have given us the opportunity to be heard and to be seen. So on that part, it took us too long. It's only now that people get to know about us because we have social media. But when it was the radios and the television, we really had no access there at all. Also on the United Front, we are facing a very huge problem. I think it's different ideologies. Maybe in South Africa, the difference was that it was the white man and versus the black man. Here, it is very difficult. We are really struggling with the United Front, especially at this critical time when we actually have to be seen as a united front, but it is a real struggle. We are not giving up though, because day by day, I guess we learn and we get to tolerate one another, but it's really an uphill battle. Maybe you can advise us on how to go about it. We know we have different ideologies, different personalities, and we do things differently, different policies and all that. So I guess that's what causes the many conflicts that we are having. But maybe what advice would you give us to try and just be civil to one another? Thank you.
Thank you. I think starting with the earlier one, mass media and social media, I think over and above the social media that I normally see you on the Swaziland News, the NLC platforms could have been bigger and could have been monitored better. I hope that there is one, that the solidarity one, it was opened very early, but other parties are busy putting their own things more than the NLC putting its own thing. That becomes something that I would advise that you take urgent steps on and have consistent content. If it's once a week, something must be published once a week so that we can start having a following there. But as I said, that be careful, don't be excited when you are the biggest on social media, that you will be the biggest on the ground. It just means that people know about you, but it doesn't mean that people agree with you. That's a part of media that we must keep in mind as well. Then on the United Front, I think you are not fully reading the South African situation. The ideological matters were more aggressive here. We could not make a united front work among political parties. What the united front of political parties, for me, is very tactical, because we are competing ultimately to govern the country, hopefully through elections. Therefore, I cannot make that party be more popular than me, even if its people are talented. So that is part of the game, and it's almost fair in that way. So we get a tactical relationship, whereas other institutions that are not directly campaigning, that are not directly in the obvious political power game. For me, that's where I'll invest most of my time in building an alliance. Yes, the PPA it's important, but how you win civil society becomes critical. In the 70s, the ANC was much smaller than the PAC. However, what they did properly was to mobilize non-political party entities to be part of their sphere of influence. And on the United Front, consider, comrades, to look at the relationships that you had built already with the churches. How do you make sure that you remain solid in the trade union movement? How do you expand your influence there? How do you take more? How do you create campaigns that put you in the same space as those people so that you can work with them? Because people ultimately have relationship with people, not organization to organization. Let me stop there. I'm not. I hope that was in the area that you were raising.
Yes, it was in Africa. Thank you. Maybe as a follow-up to just one last point that you made, I know that we have to influence the trade unions as well, but I'd like to just pick your brain on, do you think it is wise for political parties to influence trade unions? I'm looking at our case here. We have the Tukoswa, the trade union, trade union of Swaziland, Federation of Swaziland, yes. There are two major political parties that seem to be contesting for Tukoswa seats at the executive level, and that's the NNLC and Demo. And I'm noticing that maybe as the NNLC, we shot ourselves in the foot by not being fully involved when campaigning for the major posts in the trade unions because we believe that we do not want to interfere. Yet the other party, I think it's one of their policies to interfere. And sadly, what I'm seeing, which is why I'm asking this question, to say, do you think it is wise? Because I'm seeing it's not a matter of that person or the candidate for presidency, let's make an example, or secretary general is crucial for that point. I mean, for that position. It is just because this particular party was able to campaign for that person, even though maybe the one NNLC candidate would have been the best to lead that union. But you find that someone who is incompetent ends up leading because their party is campaigning for them. Hence, I'm asking the question, do you think it's actually advisable for political parties to be directly involved like that with the federation?
Political parties, their single function is to wield power in the interest of their constituency. When I say constituency, in the interest of the people that they have identified as the interest that they are representing. So if I was a unionist, I would really fight to get rid of political parties in the unions. But if I'm leading a political party, I will be pushing for more control of the unions. It becomes critical, and it becomes critical from campaigning for positions become a skill. Whenever NNLC has an opportunity to do that, I will encourage that you do, particularly because currently you are not in the electoral politics. However, that jostling, that knowledge of what makes you lose, being careless somewhere, or as you're highlighting now, being passive somewhere, will cost you the sphere of influence. And secondly, it's one of the few spaces where you can have cadres who can be government in the future because they've run institutions. You don't want to wake up and be government and you find that you've got people who have never run anything. Because outside the party, they've only been party officials. They will not be able to run the state. So that preparation becomes very critical. And for electoral politics, whoever commands the unions is likely to win the country. Thank you. Back to you.
Comrade. Thank you so much for the insight.
I must say that our own survival, although we decided to hold the view that NNLC is held now, that NACTU, which is it used to be the second biggest federation. It has fallen quite a lot. It's one of the elements that keeps us alive as the PAC. It became critical that we had control of that. We shared control of that with Azapo. But at some stage we started being more dominant because we felt initially that the unalignment was critical, but later we saw that we were shooting ourselves in the foot. Unlike what the ANC has behaved in relationship with COSATU. Comrade Mafafa, can you then close for us? Then come in, Comrade Tamin, as the last one on. on the issue.
Thank you so much, Comrade National Chairperson, for your time and capacitating us with our campaigns, because we must hold these campaigns to but nasiseta lama campaign kuyadingakala lokho ukuthi this issue of marketing, this issue of propaganda. I think that's the one ukuthi ukhulumani at what time. It's I love le ndlela oyibeke ngayo, comrade, ukuthi itasisita ngibuye kule issue yokuthi there is an act of a political party iyodwana, then there is an act of a front, more especially front yethu lesinayo thina ezilakangwane ama-political party is the political party assembly le buke inhlanganisela yemaphathi. Then we have this union. I can remember nje ukuthi some days back ukuthi it's a capacitating of our comrades ukuthi ahlukanise between a movement and a political party, but as much as ukuthi kuhlangana kanjani ukuthi kungasisita, and ukuthi we must have our own strategy as a political party, because we cannot rely ku-front ukuthi ingasendela our own decision ukuthi city market, because as much as sihlangene kule front, you must always bear in mind that we nabantu esihlangene nabo lapho city ideology lefana nawo, and they are going to be our enemies in future in marketing our nazana, as much as thine silwa for now ukuthi sisuse le regime lekhona. Analysis, comrades, are fairly straightforward. Thank you so much, leadership. And all our comrades la participate lana kule political school.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, sons of the soil and daughters of the soil. We are happy to have been given this opportunity by the PAC, particularly our national chairperson, in the empowerment of our young people. And they would also be more happier if we had more people coming in. But I think it's also an issue of resources and an issue of capacity building as well. Some of our organizations, which I'm hoping that as we move forward, we'll be able to overcome. In terms of today's content, one is very much persuaded to more and more look at how we as the party are going to grow in terms of the campaigns and the challenges in terms of the disbursement of information from the center of power to the public, and from public back to the center of power. So we're hopeful that this would assist us as we move forward. And one will also appeal that in Swaziland, we're entering a stage where there is a concentration of political power before we even win power, particularly by the new players. So I think one will persuade our own members to be calm and accept the would say, someone when he is new, we want to be seen as better and more opinionated than those that he has found there. So we should accept that. Anyone that is going to think that a new person will think of the old people as better. No, he comes to see himself as better than those that he has found there. So I think that's the period in which we are in. But let's be matured and be able to accept that we've been there and we have more to do. So I'm hopeful that NNLC will rise to the occasion, particularly its membership, concentrate on what we're looking for, the liberation of the Swazi people, and not concentrate on trying to fight that are not assisting us, particularly the new kid in the block might misdirect us. But let's remember, we are not here for other political parties. We are here for NNLC's cause. So my appeal is that let's not lose focus. Let's focus on why we're here. izwe lethu iAfrika.
iAfrika.